Welcome. This is the Jenkins Governance Board. It's the 10th of February, 2025. Thanks for being here. So, topics for today, upcoming calendar, news, action items, community activity, governance topics are all the things on my list. Any particular items that anyone wants to be sure we add that's not already on the agenda? Okay, then let's go ahead. So, upcoming weekly release tomorrow, 2.497. 2.492.2, the next LTS with Chris Stern as the release lead, is scheduled for the 5th of March. Thanks to everyone who was involved in delivering the most recent LTS release. LTS release candidate will be next week. Major events coming up. We've got the Southern California Linux Expo in Pasadena, California, March 6th. The Linux Foundation Member Summit that Basel's attending in March 18th in Napa, California. And I'm attending CDCon and Open Source Summit North America in Denver in June. Any other major events that we need to note?
No, did you
Multiple
have any
release.
news about Scale and the venue, or is that still up in the air?
No, every hint from Alyssa is they're going ahead with it.
Okay,
I'm still a little perplexed because for me it's
sure.
really wow. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
lot of fire victims that are suffering from that, and but thus far there's no indication from them of anything other than proceeding.
okay.
All right, so by way of news, congratulations to the Jenkins project for the DevOps Dozen Award, most innovative open source project. You can read the announcement in the DevOps Dozen's own blog post here, and it's, I forget how far down, here it is, most innovative, this one. Sorry, what was that? Okay, great. It's also mentioned in the Jenkins 2024 recap blog post. Thanks to Kevin Martins and others for assembling the blog post. Here it is. Action items, we've got some open ones from the past. Basel, the attribution entries for the downloads page, still on your list, I presume?
Yeah, still on the to-do list.
Okay. And I've got an action item to submit a Jenkins Contributor Summit summary blog post. I'll do that by Wednesday. I did a presentation on it. I think I've got my thoughts organized well enough. I just have to do the writing. I'm also tracking the reimbursements of all the SPI funded attendees at Jenkins Contributor Summit, and proud to say that 7 of 8 of the attendees have already submitted their reimbursement request, and it's been approved. So we've only got one left, and that one is actually a relatively low cost one. So we came in well under the $9,000 budget. So we still have some funds at SPI that we need to plan to spend. Uh, I still have the action item that I took from last meeting to propose a further definition of the sponsorship tiers. I'll do that through an email message to the board, and we can have discussions on the email. Then these other action items, I've actually completed them. Any questions or comments on the action items? Okay, so let's talk about Contributor Summit. So in the room today, or in this meeting today, we've got 4 people who attended it. So I think we ought to ask them to give a brief summary of their perceptions. Bruno, you were the first. Let's have you talk briefly. What was your perception of Contributor Summit?
Um, I think all went pretty fine. The agenda was well packed, but we made it to the end without too much delay. We weren't late, and I think that most of the participants liked the way that we organized the day. You know, with a shorter section in the morning regarding the officers' reports and the SIG reports. The brainstormings went fine. I heard very good outcomes from some of them. And yeah, it was a good thing that we prepared ahead of time the list of subjects because if we hadn't, we would have had something messier, I would say. So yeah, it went fine. People were happy, and I think we have some positive outcomes. I think of the first, what is it, blog post draft by Stefan Speaker that you commented on, Basil, and we'll have other things starting a few weeks from now. I also saw a report from Valentin regarding the maintenance track we had. So I think we reached the goals we had. At least that's my point of view. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks. Let's go to Alex next. Alex, your comments?
I think having the workshops is a great idea because we had like, I think 3 or 4 groups in total, and everyone could go to the topics they were interested in. So we had a few groups with interested people in the topic and had, I think, great outcomes on that, depending on maintenance, UX, 6 stuff, and Jenkins 3, and points we can move on to.
Thanks. Basil.
Yeah, what was most interesting to me was hearing people's ideas about what they wanted to work on next. There were a lot of common points that multiple people were interested in, things like better searching, which ties across both back end and front end. And I guess the challenge is going to be figuring out how to channel that interest into code execution. We've been pretty good as a project at working on small changes, but the larger changes have been harder for us to execute on over time, or we've been working on those larger changes, but at a very slow pace. So I don't know how we can channel all of that, because there's so much motivation. I saw a lot of motivation and a lot of people who are interested in scratching their own itch and working on some of these bigger projects. But I think we have some work to do as a community leadership to figure out how exactly to channel that interest into execution within a reasonable amount of time, right? Because we could always, do some of these big projects if we had 12 years, but if we want to do them in, 1 year instead of 12, I think that would be our challenge. But I saw all of the interest there. The community seems very strong to me. And there's definitely not a lack of motivation. So I thought that was very positive, very encouraging.
Thanks. Yeah, agreed. Lots of motivation, lots of energy. Thanks very, very much. All right. So any questions from others to those who attended the summit? Okay, so I'm going to use the blog post summary as the starting point for a report to the CDF Technical Oversight Committee. We give a report of project health every quarter, and I'll borrow that as a way to highlight it. There's also, as a result of this, something that I'll share more broadly soon. It's publicly visible now, but not known to people, is this concept of the Jenkins Community Plugin Maintainer Initiative. It's an idea to remove a barrier that was identified during the Contributor Summit, that plugin maintainers can't get access to do the things they need to do when they're doing a maintenance project that sweeps across the whole infrastructure or the whole ecosystem. So you'll see it. Your comments will be welcome, please. It's imperfect, I'm sure, but it's at least a starting point.
And we're going to have another one of these projects coming up soon too, with Java 25 support. So it's a good time to have these discussions before we have to do another sweep across the whole plugin ecosystem.
Right, exactly. And that's a great example of a case where we've got some plugins that are still not even off Java 8. And yet we stopped doing Java 8 almost 2 years ago. Java 11 not long after that, and now we're purely Java 17 and 21. So there's lots to be done on those kinds of maintenance things.
I have a positive piece of feedback to share, which is that as I've been going through and upgrading to Jakarta EE9, it has been much more smooth than the last time I did a sweep of the top 250. Mainly because everything is already on Java 17 and 21 in the Jenkins file. So, because I remember the last time I did a sweep like this for, I forget what it was, probably prototype.js removal or something a year ago. It was much harder because I was also struggling with more basic problems, such as old Java versions in the top 250. So that has all been taken care of now, and that process went a lot more smoothly. I mean, there still have been a couple. Like I was surprised the other day to find some plugin with like 5,000 installs that still had Java 11. But like those are rare. I haven't seen too many cases like that, and that's allowed me to be able to go through at a much faster pace and complete the Jakarta migration. My point is that I know that Bruno and Mark did a lot of work on that, so we're now getting the benefit of that. But it's also a reminder that we shouldn't neglect it for the next time around as well. It would be very easy to slip back into the old pattern, and I'd hope that we wouldn't slip back. I don't see any reason why we would, but yeah, I've definitely felt the positive effects. So thank you.
Thanks very much. And I agree. It's actually a treat to get to interact with a plugin that's current, right? When it's current, all sorts of things just work and they're much smoother. Great. Next topic is Jenkins Content Security Policy Project Part 2. So Michael Windsor of Alpha Omega joined us for the first 4 hours of the Jenkins Contributor Summit. And he was an active participant. Very, very grateful for that. But as a result of that, part of me thinks that it's less likely that they're going to approve Part 2. I wish they would, and it's not finally decided yet, but I just have to forewarn that I'm not sure that they're going to fund Part 2 of the Content Security Policy Project. So it was a great idea. We'll go back to making progress on content security policy the way we did in the past. Next topics. So governance topic. This one is the JFrog Artifactory Storage Reduction Project. Just be aware that JFrog sponsors our artifact repository. And they do that at no charge to the Jenkins project. But in order to keep it at no charge, they've asked us to live within a set of limits that they set on their open source sponsorships. One of those limits is not more than 5 terabytes of storage. And we're well over 10 terabytes. So we're doing a project right now that Darren Pope is leading to reduce our use of storage and bandwidth. Crucial first step that he took last Friday was to remove over a terabyte of outdated artifacts from the incrementals repository. We hadn't cleaned those things up since 2018. So he went through and scrubbed them out, and we saved a little over 10% of the repository total space. We've then got next steps, which is a little more involved to deal with some of the cached repositories that are larger than they need to be. And Darren will keep working those. If you want to read more about this kind of story, we did this something like this back in 2023, and it's discussed in this bandwidth reduction blog post. Any questions on the artifact storage reduction project? Okay. Next topic then, sponsor tiers. So in our last meeting, we discussed and agreed that we would adopt a set of 5 sponsor tiers for use in the 2024 recap blog post and in other places. The five levels over 250K value contributed as platinum, 15K to 250K gold, 5K to 15K silver, and less than 5K bronze. And then mirrors get a separate category because it's a very distinctive thing, and it's really hard, at least for me, to assign cash value to someone providing a mirror. Now, the question from Oleg in our last session was, hey, those are good, but they're really not precise enough to help people make a clear decision. How do we assess the value of GitHub's contribution of hosting for 2,000 plus repositories, or JFrog's contribution of hosting for our large quantity of artifacts? And so we need some more rules about that. I have the action item to propose those. Any questions on those tiers? Okay, next topic then, Contributor Summit travel funding. Thanks very much to Software in the Public Interest. They did a great thing for us to fund each of these travelers that came to Contributor Summit. 7 of these 8 people have now submitted their reimbursement requests. We've got 1 more to receive, and they all spent less than the budgeted amounts, and we've got some funds left over. I'll get a summary after all of the submissions are in and send it to the board separately. Then on cloud expenses, I'm a little out of date here. I know that the Azure expenses were in budget because I received the email with those. I don't have the other budget items until tomorrow's infrastructure meeting. As far as I can tell, we're in budget for all of them. The big one right now is we are increasing our AWS usage significantly in February, because beginning next week, ci.jenkins.io is expected. Oh no, I take it back. Beginning this week, ci.jenkins.io is expected to be running on AWS instead of Azure. After many years of being on Azure as the primary location, we've now switched to AWS thanks to a very large donation from them. We expect it'll be over 10,000 a month that we'll be spending there, because that's what we've been spending on our combined Azure accounts. Any questions there? Okay.
We spent a lot of money on VMs while the Azure container service was down. So hopefully that won't result in too big of a spike. But have you seen the result of that yet, or no?
I think we have, and
Okay.
there was an increase, but it was not a mind-boggling or breathtaking increase. Damien is worried that we may run out of Azure money before their next donation is scheduled. So he's being careful about it. But it wasn't mind-numbing in terms of frightening or anything like that. It was just, oh, it's more than it was in the past. All right, Alex, we had one last topic, increasing diversity in Jenkins leadership. Did you want to take some time today on that? What would you like to do?
Yeah, we could discuss. Again, just kind of looking at the video view here. There's a lot of a single demographic represented here on the governance board. So I was wondering how we can get some additional people involved to kind of diversify in the future some of the viewpoints we get, some of the opinions, et cetera. Just so that we do have a range of people from different locations around the world and things like that, and that's great. But I think we could really benefit from some additional viewpoints and so forth from other demographics than what we currently have on the board. I'm not sure how to do that, because we're a community of volunteers, and so if people are from those demographics that are not represented or not really participating in our community, getting them into leadership positions is difficult. So maybe it's an outreach we can do to get more people involved in the community in general. And I think, Mark, you've done some of that stuff with SheCode a little bit as one thing. Maybe there's some other ways we can increase that community outreach to different communities and different demographics. So it's just kind of You know, just an idea to kind of brainstorm. I don't have any actionable items at this point, I don't think. I just wanted to raise it, see if we could get some discussion going, and see what we can do to increase that reach.
I like that. Yeah. So I can give you a specific example, right? So one of our board candidates in the last elections was Chris Stern, based out of the out of Hong Kong, right? So different geographically, and I believe Chris currently uses pronoun she, right, Bruno?
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah.
So there's some, and Chris is leading the Google Summer of Code work right now. So we have a leadership person who, but I think you've got a good point that we are certainly not done with our efforts to recruit other people to help and be involved, right? And with different viewpoints, different experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to do this just to check a box for, you know, DEI.
Right.
That's not what I'm interested in. I just want to have a larger community involved in Jenkins, a larger reach, and I think we could do that. I just don't know. I don't know specifics on how to do that, so I just wanted to bring it up with the board to see if we could get some discussion going. You know, we could do it via the board group. If there are specific actionable items that people can think of, I'm happy to work on those and take those as action items myself, and so forth.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, things that have worked for me in the past have been finding people who had a professional interest in the topic and bringing them in sideways with their professional interest. So Kristen Whetstone was one of those, but right now her professional interests are elsewhere, right? I think of others similarly. We've got Jay Reddy, who is based in India, and Jay is certainly interested, but very new in the community, so growing and developing. So yeah, I think we've got work to do there.
That's all I have for now. I think we can continue discussion going forward on the mailing list and see how we can proceed.
Great. All right, thanks. That's all that I had. Are there any other topics that need to be brought to the meeting today? Okay, thank you.